My experience with Apple really did change the way I thought about many things. I worked with many other companies after my experience with Apple, and I did find myself daydreaming at many points. What would Steve Jobs do if he were in this room? Because sometimes things just get too complicated, and you need a great leader who can just remove all the confusion from the room and focus everyone. When a company has that kind of a strong mission, a brand, and a culture, and all those things, people behave in a certain way, and it focuses everyone on the same goal. So when I talk about simplicity, it is many different things at work at the same time, but the goal is to sort of unite a company, remove all the confusion, remove layers of complexity, and make it clear to employees what the company stands for, and make it clear to customers what the company stands for. And I think, when you achieve that kind of clarity, that kind of simplicity, success is a lot more likely. It's always hard to define what simplicity is, because it actually is many different things. You can look at a product, a service, the way a company is organized, the way a company markets itself. There are so many things that could be simpler. And I know Steve Jobs had this passion for simplicity, and you can sort of see it, when he was judging anything, whether it was a product or an idea. You could sort of see him analyzing in his head, and I think the level of simplicity was always very important to him. So to me, just having witnessed that process and sort of assimilated it in my own being, I think simplicity is something that is clear, important, uncomplicated by multiple layers of meaning, something that registers quickly, and probably more important, something that is memorable, because you're not asking a person to remember too many things. You allow them to focus on the one important thing. I think it was Albert Einstein who once said that if you can't explain something to a 6-year-old, you probably don't understand it yourself. So I think you need to be able to put things in simple terms, not dumb it down. You're talking about important things, but you communicate them in simple ways so that you can achieve results. And I think one of the ways that I always recommend is that you sort of step outside your company and look at it as an observer. And I think Steve Jobs was very good at that, because he wouldn't allow things to happen. If someone had to rationalize, like, well, this is okay because this is the best we can do, or something like that, he would just say, no, people are going to look at that and they're going to say yes or no, I like it or I don't like it, and I don't want to make it, fuzzy for them. I want them to have a definitive opinion. And I think you can step outside your company and look at your website, your products, the way you communicate, and ask yourself, is it so good that your customers would talk about it to other people? You don't want people just to have an individual interaction with the company and then forget about you. You want it to be so good that they want to talk about you and get more people to think to have the experience that they had. I do think that companies today are very passionate about innovating, and I have the good fortune to be traveling all around the world for the last few years, and I've talked to many companies in many countries, and I'm always amazed by how the spirit of innovation is driving so many companies. I think everyone understands that that's the key to moving forward, and I think every company wants to find a way to innovate its way to success. I would argue that there's a big difference between an amazing product and an amazing product that sells very well. So again, we get into that area of marketing. It's like you can have the best product on earth, but if you're not aware of the benefits of good marketing, it may not go anywhere. And there are plenty of examples in the world of great products that never quite took off. So I think it's a question of, again, of being aware of the importance of not only creating something amazing, but understanding that you need to find a way to communicate its amazingness to your customers, to your employees. It really is that combination. I think innovation is everywhere today. Innovation with great marketing, not so much. He did the right thing because he wanted the customer to have the best experience. And most of the times, there wasn't really a decision to make. You know, there's a better experience and there's a less good experience. So that's the one I want to do, the better one. So he always had this thing going about doing the right thing, I think. So that was an influence in my life. And I think I try to make decisions, you know, for the best possible result, you know, regardless of cost and time. And then we worry about those things later. Or what is morally correct? I mean, what do you want your company to stand for? How do you want people to view it? You know, it's a brand thing. What do you want that brand to stand for? Do you want it to be a lofty, respected brand, or do you want it to be something that, you know, makes a quick dollar and, you know, its values are not especially high? And Steve Jobs was, I think, impressive in that way, in both senses of doing the right thing. I think they do some good things, but I think they do some things that feel like the advertising of a big company. Whereas Apple was always had a certain spirit to its advertising, and, you know, I just think that that edge is softened a little bit these days. Product-wise, I think they actually do fairly well, and some people think, well, they don't seem to innovate as quickly. I don't think there ever was a timetable. Some people complain, they think Apple should innovate every 3 years. I don't know where that number came from. But there was 6 years between the iPod and the iPhone, and that was Steve Jobs. So I don't think there's a timetable. But iPhone is considered the big thing. It's the big money maker. And people don't feel like there's been as much innovation. I think it's a category that's about 10 years old, and like PCs, I don't think we all run out. We don't have to have the latest PC, because I don't know when the last time there was a huge change in PCs. I think the phone market is becoming mature, and I'm not sure if we're going to ever have that extreme wow reaction. I think there'll be some really good phones in the future, but nothing like the first models that changed the world. I do think advertising can save a business in certain circumstances. You can't make a blanket statement about everything. But Apple is a very good example, because when Steve Jobs came back in 1997, the company was very near bankruptcy. Steve Jobs would say that Apple was 90 days away from going under. And the first thing we did was create an advertising campaign, even though we had no new products to talk about. It was a pure brand campaign. And that was Think Different. And it did inspire the employees of Apple, and it told customers that Apple was alive and well, even though they hadn't done anything really amazing for about 10 years. But Steve Jobs sort of reignited the spirit of Apple. So that campaign really changed the course of Apple's history.